Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to today's Tropical Weather Outlook for June 6, 2026, Saturday. And in today's discussion, we're going to be talking about the Pacific as things are starting to get more interesting there. We have two areas of disturbance, both of which are in vest right now, and both of which are very likely to develop into potential tropical systems, and they will both bring impacts to land here. We've been talking about how there will definitely be development in the Pacific to watch over the next week and how it might have implications on the Gulf next week. But I do want to take this video to focus more on the potential impacts to Mexico and Central America because it is in the more immediate future, and the impacts will be pretty significant regardless of how strong both systems will be. And I'll talk about what those impacts will be as we go on throughout the video. So lots to go over today. Hope you enjoy, and let's get started. First off, starting off with the National Hurricane Center Bulletin. Obviously in the Atlantic, nothing is expected right now just yet in the next 7 days. So nothing happening in the Atlantic that's notable, but of course, I believe that will change very likely. We probably will get some sort of area of interest here in the Gulf. But of course, we will go over that at a later time. Right now, I mainly want to focus on what is happening in the Pacific because, as you can see, there is quite a bit. Obviously, we have Amanda out here. That's going to go out to sea, though, and not really be much of a threat to land. In fact, this is probably not far away from completely perishing and, not being of any concern. But further to the east here, you do see two areas of interest, both of which are invests. Obviously, we have Invest 91E here, which is closer to the Mexican coastline and has a high chance of development right now, at least as of the latest bulletin from the National Hurricane Center. 70% chance in the next 48 hours and next 7 days as well, but probably within the next 2 to 3 days, this will already be inland over Mexico. So 70% chance of development for this, and as well as 70% chance of development for 92E too. So we have two invests here, both of which are going to potentially bring impacts to land, and both of which will obviously, be threats. So we're going to be watching these very closely here over the next several days. Here's a satellite shot of how things are looking like right now in the Atlantic. Obviously, not much happening. But in the Pacific here, obviously you could see where our two areas of interest are, and they are both broad right now. They're both generally a part of this broad monsoon trough ITCZ type setup here in the Eastern Pacific, but you could definitely see that we have developing systems here. You can kind of already see the rotation signature here on satellite a little bit, but both of them are broad. But again, more than likely, we're going to see development here over the next several days. Here's a closer look, though, at each invest, starting off with 91E. And again, this 91E, this is the invest here that's closer to Mexico, and this is the invest that we will be watching for Mexico, as, again, it'll probably be going inland over the next 2 to 3 days here. And again, you can see that there is some sort of rotation beginning to build, probably some vorticity that is consolidating here. And it's going to continue to do so over the next 1 or 2 days. And then we have 92E, which is further to the east. And this is to the south of Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua here. And this is probably what's going to go inland into those countries over the next several days here. But both are going to be land impacts, and both will bring impacts to countries. So obviously, we're going to have to watch them very closely. Here's the surface analysis of both of them. You can see they definitely both have low pressures right now, so something is definitely beginning to build here. And you could also see as well, where the monsoon trough is, to kind of get an idea of where the setup or how the setup is for both of these two systems here. And of course, we're going to be watching them. The vorticity map. You can definitely see that both of these areas have some pretty decent vorticity. They are both broad right now, as once again, they are kind of embedded within this monsoon trough here. So they still have to kind of work on themselves and break off from the monsoon troughs and fully consolidate the vorticity around their own each low pressure centers. But it is happening. You do see that there are some pretty decent vorticity values already beginning to show up in both of these areas here, and probably within the next 2 or 3 days or so, as these systems make their way closer to land, you will definitely start to see them gain more of that typical round vorticity shape here that you typically associate when you look at the vorticity and see tropical cyclones. And of course, that is definitely going to happen here over the next several days. So let's take a look and see how it unfolds, starting off with the GFS for the 12Z, and take a look at what the model shows. And as you can see here, first off, 91E develops pretty quickly, consolidates in a very short period of time though, and obviously crashes on land into Mexico here in a very short period of time. In fact, it's more than likely going to already be inland or approaching the coast by the time we get to Monday afternoon. So it's a very short window here. It's definitely very short term and in the near future, which is especially why I'm focusing on both of these areas here a lot. And 91E is more than likely going to be the first storm that moves inland. And there's honestly, I will say this, given the short time frame here that 91E has before it's going to go inland, wouldn't be surprised if maybe if it's not consolidating quick enough that we might not even see this fully develop into a tropical system. But regardless, there will be one thing that'll happen that'll happen regardless of whether or not development occurs. And of course, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But then we have 92E here in the Pacific, and that consolidates a lot more, especially on the GFS here. But I'm a little bit suspicious of what the GFS shows, because it kind of has this consolidating and then kind of stalling off the coast here of Central America, and actually becoming a pretty significant storm here, and then moving on off to the west and aiming towards Mexico. But I'm a little bit curious of this, especially given that the GFS sometimes tends to overcook certain areas of vorticity given its general convective feedback bias. And then obviously as well, you could see when we start to be a little bit more concerned about the Gulf here, especially as we get towards the mid to latter part of next week. But again, I'll touch more on this at a later time. But I do want to show you the European here as well for the 12Z run. So we're at least using, both models for the same model run cycle, instead of having to use the 0Z for the Euro and then the 6Z for the GFS. So that is good. And the Euro, as you can see, takes 92E inland very quickly, as well as 91E. In fact, they both kind of make landfall here along the coastline roughly Monday night into early Tuesday. So the Euro does not have what the GFS does, in which, it kind of takes 91E here, 92E, because both the Euro have 91E here crashing into Mexico fairly quickly. But with 92E especially, the Euro does not do what the GFS does at all, in fact, in terms of the fact that it kind of keeps it off land, and then it quickly strengthens and then heads to the west here. The Euro quickly brings 92E onshore into Central America, and then from there you could then start to see, when we start really seeing this Central American gyre pattern kick into full gear, and that's going to partially happen because of the vorticity from 92E that'll then kind of kickstart this large low pressure here, again the Central American gyre. And then obviously throughout the week next week, we'll have to then watch and see whether or not this is able to make it northward into the Gulf. And obviously from there, we'll have to monitor the Gulf for potential development. But don't want to focus on that right now. I do want to focus on the fact, though, that regardless of what happens here, we will see a lot of rainfall for Central America. And I think that'll happen regardless of whether or not both of these systems do develop. And I say that especially because if you look at the model here, there definitely is a short time frame for both of these systems to be able to develop. So there is still a chance that neither of these do actually fully get going, although I think more than likely at least one will. But rainfall regardless will be very high. Many areas here all the way from Mexico through Guatemala, El Salvador, down to Nicaragua, all the way down to Panama here. Many areas could see up to a foot of rain, especially along the Pacific coastline, maybe even higher. We might even see amounts that reach up to 2 feet of rain. And just given the general terrain of Mexico and Central America, and I'm pretty sure that all of my viewers that live down south there can attest to the fact that there's very mountainous terrains, and the terrain in general is very prone to mudslides and flooding and things like that. So this is a very risky pattern here that's setting up over the next week. And rainfall, as I said before, tends to be the number one killer when it comes to tropical systems. Even weak tropical systems can bring a lot of rainfall, and because of that, a lot of flooding, and because of that, destruction and loss of life, and it can catch lots of people off guard because I said this before and I will say it again, rainfall is the number one killer when it comes to tropical cyclones. So that's why I'm watching the Pacific here very closely. And regardless, it is potentially 2 tropical storms threatening land. And whenever that does happen, I have all eyes on the tropics. But of course, beyond that, we will then be watching to see what impacts could potentially happen to the Gulf, and by proxy, maybe potentially happen to the U.S. Gulf Coast, but that'll happen next week, later down the line, further down the line than when we will potentially start to see impacts here to Central America. So quite a bit happening in the tropics over the next few days, and we will definitely be keeping an eye out on things very, very closely. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's discussion. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would really appreciate if you like this video. Comment any questions or concerns you have below. I'll definitely respond to them. And please, I really encourage you if you subscribe to the channel as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. If I don't talk to you, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.